Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Welcome to the J podcast. I am your host, Jahenns Manigat, aka 12, aka Canadian Red Bull. Make sure to like and subscribe to the Field of 68 Media Network so you can enjoy content such as this. I'm representing the Blue Jays as always, forever and always, but there are a whole lot of different hosts representing their own alma maters. But today, this is a Creighton-centric podcast, and this is exactly what we're going to talk about today. I have a very special guest stepping into the J with me for the second time. He is a repeat offender around these parts. He's a guy that the Nebraska fans love to hate. He is a welcomed friend of the show. Welcome him back for the second time. You missed him. You loved him. You asked for him to come back, and here he is. Tobias Hegner is making his grand return to the Welcome to the J podcast. Toby, what's up, brother?
What's up, brother? You know,
Man, I forgot to mention something real quick. Hey, I don't know if
oh
I'm
boy.
allowed to say this. Can I be the first to announce it?
Yes,
Toby Hegner is an expected father, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go.
it is a different feeling. I can tell you that. A lot of
Uh,
emotions, that's for sure. And
and
don't
it's gonna be a
and you can tell
boy.
them. Yep, I was gonna say you can tell them the good news too.
We have a future Blue Jay in our hands, ladies
Got
and
a
gentlemen.
future. Hey, you want you
Congratulations to
you
you and Pepe, of course.
you want to hear you want to hear some just complete bullshit? And I'm not. Excuse my
Let's hear
French,
it.
but there's no better way of saying it. Class of 2041. Think about that for a second, bro. Somebody, oh, dude, somebody texted me that really
Yeah.
close and near and dear to me. I literally turned my phone off and put it in silent mode. So I'm like, I can't,
Wow.
I can't even fathom the idea of that. Oh
I'm
shit,
not even going to speculate on the baby name just yet, but class of 2041 is, yeah, that's a curveball I was not ready to hear today.
you're
That's
welcome.
insanity. Uh, Obviously, congrats on that. Aside from the great news, how are you, Toby Hegner, personally holding up? How you doing?
Man, it's been a wild ride here for a little bit between coaching and running around and I'm in a place where my brothers and I are currently buying the business from dad and all that stuff. So there's a lot of ups and downs in this roller coaster ride, that's for sure. And then to throw a baby onto it, you're just like, you think you're ready, and then you're like, holy shit, kind of moment. So
Life comes at you fast.
it does, man, it does, and just like you're just trying to prepare, and we had the big gender reveal on Sunday, and we got to see all the friends and family and everybody that could be there, kind of thing, and it was such a good moment. But then it kind of really hit us that we're like, okay, we're like less than 3 months away from this child being on this earth, and we need to start kicking our ass in gear, kind of thing. So it's been a good year, dude. Can't complain one bit. Coaching was a blast. I'm really enjoying that. I got a good group of kids, so that always makes the summers fly by real quick now. So now adding a kid on, you want to hear something else crazy? So Peyton's not too happy about this one, so you'll appreciate it. So coaching, I kind of had to make a big choice. I had these 15-year-olds last year, going to be 16 this year, and I'm like, I've had them for 2 years. Do I just turn my back on them, ditch them, and let them find a new coach, kind of thing, and let it ride? And I'm like, that's not the dude I am. I'm gonna commit, sign the paper, I'm all in. And Peyton's like, hey, I'm due on March 28th, and I'm like, March 28th, like 1, 2, it's 3 days before my possible first tournament. And
Wow.
she's like, you better not be traveling out of state. So it's little boy he might be 3 years, 3 days old by the time he sees his first basketball game. So the
I don't
priorities.
know, Toby. It sounds like you're gonna have to make a tough decision there when the time comes. That's what
Oh
it
yeah.
sounds like to me.
No, it's gonna be a tough one, that's for sure. I don't know. It'll
You
be it'll
spoke
be good.
you spoke about it being kind of a roller coaster ride. How about the roller coaster ride that we experienced yesterday a little bit, watching the Jays versus Texas game? Jays
Man,
in Austin, losing 72 to 67 to the Longhorns. Whew,
just
couldn't
a
make a shot to
dogfight.
save our lives, unfortunately. Somehow, someway, we still ended up in the game, which is, I think obviously kudos to the boys for keeping that, defensive spirit and fight alive when you can't make shots on the offensive end. I know a lot of times you can get discouraged defensively, but kind of talk to me about your initial take as you were watching the game, as you saw everything winding down, seeing unfortunately miss after miss from the 3-point line, especially, and boys just started being able to cash in, always getting close to like 8, 6, 4 points, but never being able to really get over that last proverbial hump. Talk to me
Yeah.
about what you saw and your take when you were watching the game.
This is kind of the second game that I felt like they were in an absolute dogfight.
Mm-hmm.
it was blood for blood both ways for God, it was all 40 minutes. It felt like, there was not a point in the game where you're like, oh, yeah, Texas hit that run in the second half and they kind of pulled it to 12 or whatever. But then,
Mm-hmm.
Creighton being who they are, get punched in the face and then get back up and punch them back in the face kind of moment. If you really break down everything statistically and you look at it, they're probably 1 point per possession, kind of where you want to be. And, obviously you want that to be down a little bit more, but I mean, it shows that Creighton can be in big time, big minute games and still compete to win those
Mm-hmm.
games. And that says more than anything else, to be honest. It's something that I think they're going to ride on for a very long and good season here when it comes to conference and getting into postseason play.
Well, I knew that about this year's team, like even going back to last year's tournament game against Kansas, like Kalki goes down the day before. You don't have Nemhard, who's the Big East freshman of the year. Somehow, some way, they give Kansas everything they got. So about this particular group, I knew that they were going to be able to fight and stay engaged and stay in games even when, their backs are against the wall or things aren't going right. I don't think I expected it to be because it just couldn't make some pretty good looks in my opinion. Like some of them were, obviously tough. Texas is a really tough defensive team with, Coach Beard manning the defensive side of the ball. But man, it was tough to see miss after miss yesterday.
I think we've all been in that situation though. I can guarantee a game in your life you were like, God, I can't throw a freaking stone in the ocean kind of moment. And
100, like thousands of games.
yeah, it's crazy, but where maturity kind of, steps in is, hey, I'm not making shots. And I think Matt actually, this is the best way. I think, I watch Matt talk after the game and I'm like sitting there and I'm like, I really am curious to what he's gonna say. And he was talking about Baylor and he was like, you know what? There's something about that kid. He couldn't make a shot for the first 30 minutes of the game, really
38
struggled,
minutes.
but he didn't give up on the defensive end of the floor. He still was doing his thing. I mean, the kid had 11 defensive rebounds. I mean, that's huge for somebody who's not making shots and still on the floor playing 33 minutes in that game to still impact the game. That's the fact that they found ways to impact the game, even though they're not shooting the ball great, is definitely something to look forward into the future.
One thing about Baylor, though, he definitely has a nose for that defensive rebound. That's for sure because he's able to start the break, and it always gives the Jays an advantage. We had Michael Vanderford on the show last week. We talked about how him handling the ball in early transition has opened up the keys for Ryan Nemhard, who I think is playing the best basketball he's playing in a Jays jersey. Was really solid, especially in the second half last time. Was a big reason why the Jays were in the game. Um, especially like down the stretch. But Baylor's just his ability to just go get a defensive board and start the break is what I've been really impressive. Honestly, it's not something that I totally expected. Had a chance to, practice with them a little bit this summer, got to see and meet some of the new guys. What struck me about Baylor in that setting was just his competitive nature, obviously. Uh, and like Coach Courtney Williams was on the show too, and we talked about when the game's on the line, something about Baylor like just clicks. And we kind of saw a glimpse of that last night too. Like you
Yeah.
said, couldn't throw a rock in the ocean. All of a sudden, when the big three used to like apply pressure to Texas for them to make free throws on the stretch, he made two crazy ones. And all of a sudden, you look up the Jays are down two. Like
It was a ball
so.
game.
Yeah, man. It was a ball game all the way down to the end. We just fell a little bit short. I imagine if there was an extra minute and a half, things could have gone differently. But sometimes it works that way.
Yeah, it was one of those games where you're sitting on the edge of your seat all 40 minutes and you can't ask for anything better. when it comes to basketball in late November, early December. I mean, that's exactly what you're looking for when you're. I mean, that's what draws people into collegiate basketball as a fan. You know, that's you're sitting on the edge and you're just like, holy cow, is Michigan State going to do it to Gonzaga? You know, the first game of the year. Oh my God, is Creighton
Right.
going to do it to Texas? You know, early December. You know, it's just it's been a crazy year of college basketball already.
Well, what I like so much is like this was a part of the Big East, Big 12 battle. I love that conferences have decided to like uh have these challenges, where we could say, okay, like out of these 11 games that we could put up, how many are you gonna win? How many are we gonna win? It's kind of like an early season test of like where you're at, especially in that point. The ACC and Big Ten does it too. I love it because like it allows like the Power Five, Power Six, whatever we want to call it nowadays, to not coddle the non-conference schedule so much. Like you
Yeah.
have to go out and play some guys and see where you fit in. Not to call out any teams that I've seen in the past do this, but not go into conference 11-0 and then finish the season 11-14. You know what I mean?
John,
Like,
are you talking about?
and I've
Wait,
always
wait, wait. Are you
hated
talking
that
about
about.
Wichita right now? Are you trying
No,
to?
no, 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 no. If it was in Wichita, I hate bro. I have no problem saying Wichita. I hate them.
Well,
Believe you me.
wasn't that year that they? Oh man, I thought they had a dog non-conference that one year where they were going undefeated in a conference, and they actually ended up going undefeated in conference too. God, I don't remember what year that was, but it was. I think it was one of
Oh,
those years.
that. I think that was my senior year, right? Because that was Fred VanVleet's like real coming out party. Ron Baker was
Yeah.
still there.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that was my guy Shadrach Lufo was still on that team, if I'm not mistaken. Like I remember because that was after their Final Four run.
Yes.
Um, and yeah, okay. I wasn't calling out Wichita State, like I said, as a former
My
Blue Jay
bad. My
who
bad.
played
My
in the
bad. My bad.
Valley, who now has a Crane centric podcast. Trust me, if I wanted to call out Wichita State, I would do it. But that is not the team I had in mind. I had another Big East team in mind, and I'm sure you right now you're on Google trying to figure out which team I'm thinking of. You, Toby, let's not get our show canceled. Do not throw any shade at
I'm
any
not
Big
doing
East teams,
anything.
please. I'm begging you.
I'm not doing
But
a single thing.
but yeah, I just like that conferences are doing that. Where like now you kind of get a chance to see like really what the real early tests and a real good early look at
Yeah.
what these teams look like. What we know about Creighton so far is it could play against absolutely anybody. We saw that in Maui with them only losing to Arizona. This is their fourth straight top 25 ranked opponent, if I'm not mistaken, right? So they go 2-2 in those games. Okay, now we know where we're at, and now we get to see, deficiencies where we get to build. um I really enjoy conferences being able to do that, and I hope it's a trend that continues because we know how some of these teams can be with just not wanting to get that early season loss, and I guess it would be a fool's gold way of having confidence in your team, in my personal opinion, if you're not really matching up and playing other teams. Let's remember this is a Texas team that beat Gonzaga pretty handily at home. So with that being said, if you're a Jays fan and you see, Gonzaga being a top 10 team, a top five team in most people's eyes, look at how we stacked up versus how you stacked up. Now there's a hypothetical game that we're playing. Both teams ended up losing, obviously, but like I said, it's just a good way to measure teams early in this season. So what say you, Toby?
I think it's important because it gets you more prepared. So it's going to get you more prepared for those late season NCAA tournament games, playing on a neutral. Well, obviously you're not playing on neutral floors, but
Mhm.
it gets you used to playing against these top tier opponents, and it's not like you're playing against the Chicago States or the Long Beach or the Longwood. You know what I mean? It's you're playing against
Yeah.
people that you might see in the NCAA tournament, and it's a resume booster. Whether or not they lost by 5 or not, that's still going to boost them when it comes March. There's no doubt in my mind about it. So I really think that it's important. I think Matt's done a really good job in the last couple of years of really scheduling well, and I think it's something that's going to continue to move forward from a Jay standpoint because listen, the Creighton Blue Jays are a national known team now. It's no
Mhm.
longer, oh, who's Creighton, Mo Valley. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's it's the Creighton freaking Blue Jays, dude, and
Mhm.
they're ready to toss hands when it comes time. So I think that it's a big props to the coaching staff for getting not only the kids ready for games like this, but also scheduling games like this to test their abilities because they're going to look back at this. I guarantee you they're going to look back at it when it comes February and be like, where were we at to where are we now? And be like, we're
Mhm.
ready kind of moment. So I'm really looking out into the future for the Creighton Blue Jays and seeing success. The only thing that scares me, dude, is minutes. Minutes, man. I mean, we've all been there. We've all been on teams that we've got three or four dudes playing more than 30 minutes a game or even high 20s. There's burnout, dude. There is 100% burnout. And that's when things, whether injuries happen or something happens, and we need the bench to kind of step up. And I know you feel the same way because our bench should. We have the ability to. It's just, I don't know if there's a little bit of timidness there or if they're not getting the chance. They're getting pulled quick because they know they can go back to the five and continue to have success. I'm not really sure what's going on from a coaching standpoint, but we're going to need some productivity from our bench in order to make a run when it comes time.
It's so funny that the reason I'm laughing as you mentioned that is because you might as well host this podcast because that was really the next question I was about to ask you, and I'm gonna ask it exactly as I have it written down here in my notes. Hold on, where is it? Yeah, all the J scoring came from their starting five. There was no
Yep.
scoring that came from the bench. And then I was gonna into this anecdote about you and I both having started and having came off the bench. I was gonna ask you what, someone who has gone through that, having come off the bench and also has started, when it is your time and your role to come off the bench and come into a game and make a splash, what what would you tell the current guys on the bench right now if you had a chance to, if you had their listening ear, what would you tell them about like their preparedness and having to learn how to get ready, even though we all want to start, that's not always going to happen, obviously, but it takes like a special approach to come off the bench and be successful and to, either infuse energy or, shooting or toughness, whatever the team needs in that moment in time. So what advice do you have, Toby, to give to the guys to make sure that they're ready?
And that's a good one. I mean, from a guy who started his freshman year to having the sophomore slump to coming off the bench as a sixth, seventh guy junior year to starting again his senior year, I've definitely been on that train before, and I definitely know what you're talking about 110%. And truthfully, looking back at my career, I think I was playing my best basketball my junior season in the fall. Um, to Nebraska dunks. You know, I was playing my best basketball then from a guy who
Let's
doesn't dunk
save
the
the
basketball.
Nebraska stuff for later. We'll talk about
Uh,
Nebraska in a little
um,
bit. Come on, talk to
I
me about what you would
honestly,
tell the
yes,
kids right
no, I
now.
got you, I got you, I got you. Where I was going is when you come off the bench, you can't get kind of like pulled into the game. You kind of got to sit back and kind of watch what's going on. You got to look at, hey, what's the where when I come in, where am I going? Well, I'm gonna go in at the four or the five. All right, I'm going in for Justin or I'm going in for Cole. Who's guarding them? What are
Mhm.
they doing? Are they aggressive? Are they are they kind of being shot fake? You know, you're kind of scouting from the scout that you were given while you're sitting there, and
Mhm.
I think that kind of gives you a an advantage almost because you might get subbed in at the 16-minute mark at the first TV timeout, and they still might be on the floor and they're going to be tired, and you're
Right.
coming in with fresh legs, and you got to look at it like I've got 100% advantage here. I know what his game is. I've been watching him for 4 minutes. I'm about to go take care of business. Or, hey, that dude's kind of lighting us up. I need to go stop him. You know, it's you're evaluating the game as you're sitting there on the bench. And I think that sometimes in big games, the bench just kind of gets too much into the game. They don't step back and they're still remembering, hey, I got a job to do. I gotta be
Right.
watching the CBs of the world and seeing, you know, oh, he's got a left hand jumper that or jump hook this year. You know, I can't just give him a left hand hook. I got to make sure I'm playing them both ways. You know, there's situations where you can get into the game, but that's usually when you're winning by 10 or so. But when it's a close game, you're sitting there, you're thinking about what you're gonna do next. And when you step on the floor, you give it everything you got because one, the coaches are gonna realize it
Mhm.
and be like, I can't take the guy off the floor. He's jumping on the floor for a loose ball. He's boxing his guy out. The whatever. I mean, the guys were doing a great job defensively for almost nearly the entire part of that game. But I think there was just a lack of or not confidence, but just a lack of paying attention and being locked in when that bench kind of came in. It got a little sloppy. And I think that's why Mac went back to the starters as early as he did and kind of let them ride for the game because I don't think he had the trust in his bench at that time. And I think it's on them. It really is. And I think they just got to sit back and they got to be like, I need to be better for one, and two, how do I get better? And I think it's evaluating those people while you're sitting there watching them play because I think that gives you more of an advantage than all the hours of film that you just watched. Because I don't care what kind of basketball player you are, you're not playing the same basketball game every single time you step on the floor. People are taking away things, you're getting different looks. You know, you can only scout so much, but when you're sitting there, front row on the court, looking at a guy, knowing that Angel Delgado doesn't have anything outside of 6 feet, you pick up on those things and it gives you a little bit of a confidence boost, giving you a bigger head defensively. And then your offense kind of starts flowing because you're playing well defensively and you're kind of getting into a rhythm. And that rhythm just kind of takes off. So I think we just got to be a little bit more locked in and not be so. And it kind of sounds bad because I'm basically saying don't get into the moment because you should kind of get into the moment. It's a fine line, dude. It's a really fine line, and I don't really know how else to kind of explain it.
Well, I love that you brought that up, and I wanted to touch on that specific point right there because obviously we're a lot older now, and we're thinking about it with hindsight being 2020. I I came off the bench to start my freshman year. It wasn't until through that year that I got the nod to start, and I guess I never really looked back since. But like the thing about like being in the moment, that is the thing that I was really big on, was to stand up every time my teammates did something good, to cheer as loud as I can when I was out on the bench, just to provide encouragement. Obviously I wasn't tasked to do some of those things these guys are tasked to do coming off the bench. That wasn't my skill set at the time. I was just asked to come in and provide energy. But I do understand what you mean because obviously being a pro, I've started some seasons, I've come off the bench some seasons. Heck, this year right now, like there's some games that I start, there's some games that I come off the bench. And I now understand this is my ninth year playing overseas, right? That
Still
cerebral
learning.
approach that it takes when you're coming off the bench. Still learning, always learning. But that cerebral approach that it takes when you come off the bench to not be so high as to, what is actually going on. Like I have to remind myself to like take a seat, like literally like lean back into your seat and watch the action. And what I've learned is those first couple of minutes when you're on the bench and you're watching the action, it is a confirmation or a denial of what the coaches showed you on film. And when it's a confirmation, that's what gives you the most confidence, right? Like you mentioned, like like the guy that you're probably gonna go in to guard, what are his strengths? What are his weaknesses? Like we know that the coaching staff has gone over those things. Is a catch and shoot guy, run him off the line, yada yada yada. Those first couple of minutes is a confirmation of that. Oh yeah, the coaching staff did their job. They gave me the right information. Every once in a while, the guy can do a little bit more than what the coaching staff can do, and that's also your responsibility to sit back and watch that and be like, oh, I didn't know he had that in his package. All right, when I get in, I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna shut that down also. And that's just us speaking on the defensive end. Obviously, on the offensive end too, like I've learned to be like, oh, they're tagging from, the bottom guy, not the top guy on ball screen coverages. Oh, they're reading ball screens. They're going under on ball screens, whatever the thing may be, right? So I just think it's kind of a bit of a growing pain. And I know we're getting into the nitty gritty of like basketball, like mindset, X's and O's a little bit too. But I do think that is an important thing that you brought up as far as a player's ability to survey, to understand what's going on, and then to be able to apply that in real time once their name is called. So I thought that was a brilliant point that you brought up.
I think that it's a tough point to teach 18, 19, 20, and 21-year-old kids. Looking back at it, I would never have been the type of guy that kind of looks in and does that. It took me till my redshirt junior year where I'm 22 years old to realize this is what it is, and it's true. I mean, kids back then, dude, we're in the moment, and there's nothing wrong with being in the moment. I hope that anybody listening to this doesn't take that the wrong way, because it's not that I don't want you to cheer for your teammates. I don't want you to get the crowd into it. That's not at all that I'm saying. You can do that while sitting back watching the
That's not at all
game.
who we were either. We were
Yeah,
definitely those guys jumping around.
yeah, 100%. I could show you hundreds of pictures of me jumping up and down, waving a towel, whatever, and I can probably put 1,000 of them of you, because
Mhm.
you're just that guy. And but I think that there's something to be said about it. There's some growing pains here that need to happen, and I think this is going to open up the eyes to those bench guys, to the Mason Millers, to Sharif, who's been there for how long? I mean, it's gonna open up eyes to be like, we got to come in the game and do something. We can't be a liability. There's a reason that we're playing, for one, because coaches believe that we can play. Now we got to believe in ourselves, and we got to believe in the scout, believe in all the preparation that we put in. Because I mean, if you really think about it, Creighton has been preparing for this game for days. So for a fact they had a really good scout on them, and it proves to it. 5 point loss. I mean, they didn't give up. But I really think that we just need to be a little bit more locked in when it comes to our bench players coming in.
Big Kalki has been better than advertised this year. He goes 9 for 10 yesterday, 20 points, 13 rebounds. We knew what he could do defensively. He was on the podcast too. We spoke about that, like some of the stuff that he's been working on to improve his game offensively. But he's always been a high efficiency guy. He's taken that to a whole other level this year. What has impressed you so much about the big fella, being able to get deep seals, finishing in the paint both left and right, and obviously the occasional alley oop every once in a while.
Man, I have the utmost respect for that guy. For a 7 footer, I don't. You could look back however long, but for a 7 footer to play 35 great minutes like he did last night is, I want to say, almost unheard of, but very rare, I guess, is probably the better way of putting it. The dude is a sheer all-star. I don't care. You can put him up against any center in the country, and he's going to prove himself. Obviously, it's I think Mac has done a really good job of teaching him the importance of, getting off of the ball screen quickly for those alley oops that you're talking about. Because I think over the last year, he's kind of gotten a little bit quicker getting off those ball screens, giving him a little bit more opportunity. And I think as he's developed into his body, because all of us at 18, 19 years old haven't done that yet, he's starting to realize how well he can pin people to 2 feet. And I don't know if you watched the post game, but I've never laughed so hard in my life. Somebody asked Koch, he's like, how do you how much confidence do you have when you get the ball down low? And he's like, well, if I'm not making a 2 foot jumper, I shouldn't be playing. It was something just extremely sarcastic, because he knows that they're high percentage shots, and he's got
Right.
the space. He it's just he's grown so much right in front of us. It's been really cool to see, to be honest. As an alum, as
What
a
I
fan, whatever.
what I love the most about him is I didn't realize how much personality he had. Like this summer was the first time I got a glimpse of it. And, I would encourage everybody to go back and listen to that. I believe it was the second episode of this year's podcast with Big Kalki. He Man, he demands a lot of attention and he's got great personality. I could see like why the guys love him in the locker room because he's a really good guy, like really cares about his teammates, and he's just worked his butt off to be able to be so efficient. And yeah, people could say, well, he's 7 feet, he's yada yada. Trust me, it is not that easy to continuously hit and get hit, to roll as quickly as you do, to outrun bigs, to have deep seals. That stuff is not easy. Like have and I love this because like we live in such an era where everyone wished that they did the opposite of what they do. Guards wish they were big, bigs wish they were guards. It's not that
Facts.
easy to do all these post-up drills, you guys. Trust me. Like later in my career, because I've finally got into the man body I was supposed to finally have, I'm finally posting up guards a little bit. And it is a tough job to get double teamed down there to find the right pass and to be efficient. Like, trust me, I'm not holding any of that stuff, or I'm not taking any of that stuff for granted for big hockey. Like, what he's doing is eye popping, to be honest. And
Yep.
there's a reason why he's so efficient on game days because he's worked so hard in the off season to get to where he is. I can't help but also bring up Ryan Nemhard in this situation. I talked about him a little bit earlier about how crucial he was in the second half. His last 4 games, man, he's just been on another level as well. The combination of him and Colburn on a ball screen, we talked about their alley oop connection a little bit, but they just have such a you know good 1-2 punch there. And I think it's obviously the reason why Jays are getting some of these open shots on the perimeter, which prayer is up that they start knocking them down, obviously. But again, a 2-man game, the most simple version of basketball. What do you see from those two that's gonna bring a lot of success to the Jays as the season progresses?
I think the best thing for them has been playing together for that first year and getting to know each other's strengths and weaknesses because now they can work off of each other better than they did last year. Kaltbrenner's got some really good hands. I mean,
Yeah, he
it is
does.
it is not. I don't care who you are or if you're 5'5" and you think you can dunk or whatever, but to catch an alley oop like and make it look so easy, it's not. It's truly not. I
Mhm.
mean, sometimes those passes are coming a million miles an hour and you don't see that as a fan. But to be able to catch those efficiently, whether come down with them or finish them or just dunk them, it's a testament to Kalk because they're not afraid to give him the ball, and that says something to about him. Whether or not he's got the right position or not, they're going to throw it to his hands because he knows everybody on that floor knows that he's going to go and get the ball with really good hands and make a good decision with it. I think the relationship between the Ryans, I really truly think is going to be impressive all year long. I don't care because you could have Ryan coming off Ryan one, Ryan two. You can have Kalk coming off of a ball screen, going to the hoop, getting an alley oop. You can get that 3 times in a row, and then Nemhard comes off of a screen, hits a 15-foot jumper, or he fakes the black screen, comes off back to his right hand, and shoots a step back three. It's such a lethal weapon when you have a really good point guard and a really good center because watching them work off of each other, it's almost magical in a way. And I think we're going to get a really good glimpse of that all season long.
Up next for the Jays, Nebraska coming down to the CHI. Nebraska's 5-3 this year. That's a game that we always all look forward to. I see your eyes sparkle a little bit every time I say the name Nebraska.
I love Nebraska.
So they're 5-3 coming into the Jays. They're 5-3 coming into Jays Arena on Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. They have wins against Maine, Omaha, Arkansas Pine Bluff, Florida State, and Boston College. That was part of their ACC Big Ten battle. They have losses against Oklahoma, Memphis, and St. John's. I think the St. John's game was a 20-point loss. You know how it is when Nebraska's next on the schedule. Talk to me about the feeling knowing that that's the next game and what like practices and like that whole, let's say, like 3-day prep looks like when you're going to play Nebraska next.
I think you're at a different level of being locked in because you know how important that game is when your English oh Jesus professor
For English for Russia.
your professor walks up to you after class and says, "Listen, if you don't beat Nebraska, you're not passing my class." There's a level of excitement and just you're just like, I'm not only getting it from my teammates and my coaches, but Joe Blow walking on the streets all locked in for this game. I don't care if it's your psych professor. I don't care if it's your econ professor. Every single one of them is locked in on this game. The Creighton-Nebraska game almost should be a national holiday in the state of Nebraska. That's how that's how important it is, dude. And
Yeah.
you realize it as a player early. You don't need to see it your junior and senior year. You already know the day you walk on campus. That
Mhm.
first season, you know that this means more than anything to Creighton fans, Omahans, whatever. I mean, it's whoever it is, it means a lot to both sides. And to say that I was 5-0 against them just makes me feel great. So they can go pound it.
Well, I knew that from my visit, even when D-Rock came and picked me up at the airport, and I saw Cornhusker cabs. Since we have Ubers and Lyfts and all that stuff, we don't see cabs so much anymore. But it was a red car with the number on the side that said Cornhusker cab, and D-Rock immediately pointed out, and he's just like, "We don't like them," and he just drove off. I was like, "Damn!"
That doesn't shock me one bit.
So trust me, like I knew before, getting the real lay of the land in Omaha about like the rivalry and how important it was to Creighton fans. So yeah, no, you're absolutely right. When everybody on campus walked in, like the threat of not passing, like
There's a lot on your
is
shoulders.
that a true story, Toby? Because we might have to dig into that story a little bit.
I'm telling you 110% that happened. True story to me. I want to say it was my junior year of my
Mhm.
college. It was unbelievable. I couldn't believe it because it was this really small, petite woman who probably hasn't played a lot of basketball in her life, but she literally after class, where again we probably had a 2 or 3 day prep, right? It was probably one of the first 2 days. I'm just like going to class, doing, like every college student doing your thing, and you're about to walk out, put your headphones in, and all of a sudden the professor just stops you, puts your hand in front of you and says, "Hey, can I talk to you?" And you're like, "Oh shoot, what did I do?" So you're like, "Oh, did I not cite something correctly?" Kind of you're going through
Mhm.
that part of your life. And then she's like, "You know what? If you don't beat Nebraska, I'm not letting you pass this class." Without,
Wow.
I was like, I kind of stepped back. I was like, okay, that's the
Okay.
level of intensity.
Gotta get it done.
It's
Yeah.
that's the intensity level that we got to bring this year. So it was quite the experience, but I really hope that this game, watching the St. John's Nebraska game, I really want this to kind of be a ball game, to be truthfully honest, because I want there to be long-term success for Fred Hoiberg. Because I think he could kind of bring Nebraska back to what it used to be, just with his background. And Fred was, at Iowa State when I was getting recruited one of my best friends, Matt
Mhm.
Thomas, recruited me at the same time, wanting to go there. TJ who's coaching Iowa State now was the assistant that recruited us. I have a really good personal relationship with those guys. So you want to have them have long-term success, but I really still want the Blue Jays to whoop their ass. I
Of course. Of
mean,
course.
this is
And it
just
kind of sucks too because like uh I've gone to know a lot of these coaches through Mac, right? Mac is obviously really close friends with a lot of those guys. The relationship that I have with Mac now, like I've been able to meet some of those guys and I got to know him and I could see why Mac is friends with, like the Hoibergs, of God, why am I blanking on my guy who was the coach when I was playing at Nebraska? God, you guys are gonna kill me for this. The head coach for Nebraska when I was playing.
come on, big
He's an
guy.
assistant there
Coach,
now.
he coached. No, what?
Maybe?
I don't think so.
No,
I
maybe
don't.
not. Either
I don't think
way.
so. Hold on.
Either way. But like, okay, so like an example, like Coach Cooley, at Providence. Like I've obviously we played against him, got to know him. Obviously,
Great
like he's
dude.
really close with Mac. Awesome guy. But like you hate these guys because we have to play against them, but they're great
I
people.
still
So
hate Providence
in the
fans.
back of your heart, like you're just like them. Yeah, you still want good for him, right? Like Coach Cooley is a hard guy to cheer against just because like I've gotten to know him and how good of a person he is throughout the years. But yeah, like as you mentioned that, yeah, we still want Curry to absolutely go down and whoop their ass. That's 110%. Derek Walker is a forward at Nebraska. He's averaging 15 and 10 in the 3 games that he's played so far. Followed by Casey Tominaga, I hope I'm not butchering his name, and CJ Wilcher. Both guards are averaging about 11 and a half, 12 points. What's it going to take for the Bulls to be victorious in this rivalry game? They're coming off that loss. I know they're chomping at the bit to get back on the court. So what's it going to take for them to bring home a victory here?
I think it just comes back down to preparation and being locked in for 40 minutes. And we're going to need our bench to do something. It's not like you need your bench with the starting five like Creighton has. You don't need your bench to just go overdo it. You just need him to come in and keep that spark alive and just not kill the momentum. And I think that if you need Miller to hit a couple threes because that's what he does. You need him to rebound the basketball. Anyone that comes off the bench has the ability to do it. We just need something out of that. I think it's going to be a long season if our starting five is playing 30 plus minutes a game because we've all been there. We've all seen it. It's just not good long term. And I think Mac knows that more than ever, just with he's been coaching for so long. He's learned those lessons over his life. That's why he's changed the way he practices. That's why he's changed the way he preps, is because of those late season injuries and stuff like that. So I think that it's going to be really important for our starting five to start us off strong, but it's going to be even probably more important for our bench to come in and actually create a spark of some sort, whether it's getting on the floor for a loose ball, going up over somebody, hitting a couple jump shots. That spark is going to be important and something to look forward when we come to tip off.
I'm expecting Trey Alexander to have a major bounce back game. He kind of
Yeah.
struggled, I think only 4 points in his 33, 34 minutes. So I'm expecting him to come out the gates, trying to obviously like build back some of that confidence that he had because he was playing some really good basketball in Maui. Like I'm talking about elite level basketball on both ends of the floor. What I love the most about him is his willingness to take on that defensive challenge a little bit like Alex O'Connell did last year. You see that he's really stepping up to the opposing best perimeter threat and he's trying his best to lock him down. He's only going to get better in that role and in that job. So I'm expecting him to have a really big game. Who do you have your eye on as a Blue Jay that you think is going to have a really big game against Nebraska?
Man, you almost want it. You almost want it to be Alexander, but I'm looking at Baylor to come off and just get hot quick. Like I'm talking
Mhm.
like Ethan Roddy, just hot, just getting after it immediately and continuing throughout the course of 40 minutes. He might hit a couple shots early, but it's going to be his defense that keeps him in the game and then hit some late shots. But he is going to probably have a great game. And I think it's going to be fun because I'm almost positive he's a Nebraska kid, isn't he? Am I
Yeah,
wrong?
Baylor's from wow. I'm blanking on this too. Where's Baylor
Aurora.
from? Can we Google this real quick?
Aurora.
Aurora. There it
Yep.
is.
So
There it
being a
is.
Nebraska kid, I
Mhm.
I am telling you it's going to be very important for him because he knows this rivalry. He knows this importance. I guarantee it from almost birth. So it's gonna be 100% Baylor. He's gonna have a great game. And then obviously I think Kalk and the both Ryans are gonna have great games too. So, but I got my eye on Baylor for sure. I think he's gonna try and bounce back really well. But going back to
It-
the Nebraska coaches, were you thinking of Tim Miles?
no, no, not Tim Miles. But Tim Miles is also a really good guy that Coach Mack knows. And Tim
Yeah,
Miles, friend of the show, Fielder 68 contributor before he got his San Jose State job. Shout out to Tim
it's
Miles
true.
for sure. So who am I thinking about then? Because I know you got it next. Who was before
It
Tim
was
Miles?
it was Doc Sadler.
Doc, there it is. Want to know why I messed it up? Because homie Avery Digman, you know how he used to always fumble the first letter of each name. So he would call him Sock Dadler all the time. So that's why I couldn't think. Oh, my guy Sock. Shout
Hi
out Avery
guys.
Digman.
Oh my
Avery
gosh.
Digman used to always just, whatever name that you like, my name would be Mahans Janiga, like he would just do that all the time just to mess with us and stuff. So he'd be like, "Oh, Sock Dadler." So that's why I
Avery
just couldn't think about
Avery
it.
to this day still plays mental mind games with everybody. It's not even it's I guarantee you that we both don't play as much basketball as we used to in our lives. But even at, the weddings this summer, it's still mental. He's still trying to get into that head to this
Oh
day.
yeah,
It's just who he
his
is.
competitive nature, just as soon as he sees us too, like it kicks in. I don't know
Oh
what it
yeah.
is because I know like on a daily basis he won't have it, but as soon as he sees one of us, like he just has to get right into it.
Oh yeah.
So it's going to be a really good game, man. We're hoping that the Jays are going to be back on track. Obviously, um, a very important game for bragging rights in the state of Nebraska. Our ladies beat Nebraska earlier this year already, so I guess boys, it's our turn. It's our turn. Follow the ladies' lead here because the girls are killing too. They've been doing a really good job.
I
like
mean, that's something
following
to
their
talk about for
Elite
sure.
Eight run. Yeah,
Yeah, I
following
mean,
their Elite Eight run, they haven't skipped a beat at all.
it is a great day. You always see it on Twitter and people that say it's a great day to be a
Yeah.
Blue Jay, but god dang it, it is a
Mhm.
great day to be a Blue Jay. You've got Creighton men's soccer on Saturday, fighting
Mhm.
in the Elite Eight. You've got,
Women's volleyball tonight starting their tournament run.
you got that. You got top 10 team as your men's basketball team, and you have a top
Mhm.
15 team as your girls. There is
Should be top
nothing,
10. We can have that conversation.
there is no better day than
Mhm.
this time to be a Blue Jay fan for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
it's got to have the city of Omaha just in a riot almost.
Shout out Coach Flan, shout out Coach Boo, shout out to all those coaches,
Yeah.
doing work. And as alumni, we're very biased, but like nationwide, I think obviously the Blue Jay name is getting more and more recognition, and that's all thanks to the good work that those coaches do on a day in day out basis, followed by their staff, followed by the student athletes, who are all obviously putting their best foot forward and representing as well as they are.
It's pretty cool to see just how invested these coaches are. You always seen it from Flan, you've always seen it from
Mm.
Booth, but you've kind of seen it with Mac a little bit more as he's getting towards the later part of his career. He's getting a little bit more invested, and he always had a couple games, with that big Isaiah Zierden three where his hands are over his head trying to get the crowd into it and stuff. You see more of that, but now you add on like a Johnny Torres from the men's soccer head coach. He just brings a different side of energy to the game, and it makes you want to play for him even more. And I think that's why you're seeing long term success from every single program at Creighton. I mean, there's nothing. You've got some of the best coaches in the country, without a doubt. And yes, I'm biased, as we all are as alumni.
Yeah, definitely biased. Yeah. Oh yeah. Creighton's the best. Oh yeah. Did you guys not know that? Shout
But
out Coach Torres. Coach Torres' son Dominic used to always be one of my kids for camp or whatever. Like I was always his coach. So like him
I
and I got pretty
remember that.
close over like my 4 year that I was there because like somehow, some way, like I would always end up coaching Dominic. So shout out Coach Torres, like unbelievably good guy. Like he's doing the absolute most of the opportunity he was given, which he earned, obviously, having been a player, having been an assistant coach, and now a head coach in his alma mater. That's the dream right there. Like
I
that
mean,
is the literal dream. So
he
he's
has
doing it.
done he has done it perfectly. He's done his time at all levels.
Mhm.
And I know in my later part of my career, I got pretty not close with them, but it wasn't the hey coach, when you're passing each other. It's hey, how's the family? How are you
Right.
doing? How's school? You kind of get a little bit closer with other coaches on campus, and Johnny was just that guy that just always had something to say that made you laugh. And it was just like God, I'm gonna go step in goal for him and try my
Mhm.
best, kind of mentality, just because of the dude he is. So I can
Yeah.
only imagine how, and it's no different with Booth or Flan or Mac. I mean,
Mhm.
it's just you want to go fight for him and you want to do your best for him. And I know we've kind of harped on our bench a little bit, probably a little bit too much here tonight, but I really know that they want to go out. I know Miller and all the rest of them want to go out and be successful for this team. I think there's a little bit of not confusion, but a little bit of timidness there here early. But I think that I think this game was probably the best thing to happen for that bench because it's gonna flip that switch for him and be like, all right, it's now or never. Push up or shut up.
Right. Well, I certainly appreciate you taking a little time out of your day to step into the J with me one more time. How often have we been to the J together? We're doing it virtually now, but it's the best that we could do since they shut down that
Hey,
beautiful, beautiful establishment.
there has to be, and hear me out here. There has to be a day where you and I go on with a card table, a card folding table with a generator, some extension cords, whatever it's got to be, where we go and sit where the J used to be,
In that field. Yeah,
have a drink, and talk about Creighton sports because
there
there's
it is.
I'm telling you that thing will blow up 100%
Well,
because
having a podcast called Welcome to the J, I feel like already should have done that at least at some point. So you're giving me a lot of
you're
ideas for
welcome
the
for the
summer times
idea.
back in Omaha now. Toby Hegner, we appreciate you so much. Make sure to like and subscribe to Field of 68 Media Network for content such as this. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. This was episode number 5, our 5th guest of season number 3. We're 3 seasons in, Toby. Welcome to
I'm,
the J, baby.
I'm a
Alive
top
and thriving.
I'm a top five guy. Gosh, that makes
Yeah,
me
you
feel
are a
great.
top 5 guy. Top
I'm
5,
a
top
top
5,
five
top
guy.
5. Any last words for the Jays fans, Toby? Any last words?
Man, there's nothing else that I can say. Truthfully, I mean it's an exciting time to be an alum for one, and to be a fan now, and to be hopefully raising a fan here shortly.
Hell yeah.
I mean, there's no better time to be a Blue Jay fan. There's without a doubt in my mind. It's simply from top to bottom. It's simply amazing.
You said hopefully. I'm gonna change that word to definitely. Love you, Tobias, bro. Obviously, it's so good to see you as always. Let's make sure that we stay in touch, yeah?
Always, you got it. 12.
All right, everybody. Take care. Appreciate you guys listening in. And as always, go Jays.